Hello, and welcome to today's presentation on how to do a museum tour virtually. I'm Mary, an AARP volunteer. I've been a volunteer with AARP approximately 2 years, mostly doing presentations on smart driver tech, also virtually. Before we get started with the presentation, I have a few housekeeping items. First, we will be answering questions at the end of the presentation. However, we suggest that during the presentation, as comments or questions come up, you enter them in the comment section of Facebook or YouTube as they come up during the presentation. Also, if you have any technical issues, such as video or audio issues, we recommend that you or suggest that you hit your refresh button. Now that can be found up in the left-hand corner of your web browser, and it looks like a half or not complete closed circle with an arrow on it. Finally, if you like today's presentation and want to find out what other events we have coming up, please visit our AARP Michigan virtual events page. You can find it by going to www.aarp.org/mi and clicking on the virtual events link in the top of the page. Now, I'd like to introduce our presenter today, B.J. Wyszynski. B.J. Wyszynski is a former software engineer and instructional design manager. In 2007, B.J. left the technical industry to devote herself to the nonprofit sector. She's been a technology trainer with Senior Planet at AARP for more than 2 years, based at the Avenidas Center in Palo Alto, California. Let's welcome BJ. BJ.
Thank you, Mary. Let's go to the shared screen, and that will be this one. Or Karina, how do we show my shared screen? There we go. So hi, again, I'm B.J. Wyszynski. I'm a trainer with Senior Planet. I'm so pleased to have you all here today. Thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure to work with Michigan AARP. So here's what we're going to cover today in our talk. We're going to talk about, well, what exactly do we mean when we say virtual museum tour? What does that mean? And then we'll talk about some of the advantages of virtual tours, give you an idea of what the virtual tour experience is like, and then talk about how to do it, how to find some virtual museum tours, and some of the tools available for doing these tours. And then we're going to dive into some sample tours so you can get a look at some up closer. And we have picked something to show you for Black History Month. And then at the end, we will have a Q&A section. So again, you can type your questions into the comments, and we'll follow up later and answer as many as we can. So we're going to start by taking a poll. And if you're on Facebook, this will come up as a Facebook poll. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube and don't have the Facebook poll, if you like, you could also type into your comments whatever you're able to do about, have you ever viewed a gallery in a museum virtually? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't, or maybe you're not sure whether what you've looked at qualifies as a virtual museum tour. So you can all take a moment to complete that, and then I'm going to check in with Mary to get the results shortly. So meanwhile, let's talk about what is a virtual museum tour? Well, of course, many people have been spending a lot of time online since the pandemic kept us from going places in person. And virtual museum tours have been around longer than that, but they allow visitors to to go in and take a self-guided tour of a museum's rooms and galleries and some of the works there, the exhibits, and look at specific artworks or historical artifacts. And you can do that from any device connected to the internet, your computer, your laptop, your smartphone. So in particular, a lot of museums that already had tours added more when the COVID-19 emergency forced many of the museums to shut down to in-person visitors. And then other museums got on the bandwagon too and added their own so that so they could continue to engage with visitors with their collections, their paintings, their sculptures, their installations. So the image you see here is from the Museum of Natural History at the Smithsonian, and you can see here there's even a little map. So we'll look closer at that later. There was an article in Forbes in April 2020 showing that Google searches for the term virtual tour increased 7 times from February to March of that year, from 1,300 to almost 10,000. And of course, that was the initial search. It hasn't continued at that exponential growth, but when government started locking things down, then people looked for things that they could do online, and this was one of them. Now, some of the advantages of virtual tours. Oh, I'm sorry. I just saw that I need to speak louder. So, so Karina, let me know if that's enough. I see our poll results. So let's take a quick look at those first. 42% of you said, yes, you have taken a virtual museum tour. 55% said no, and 5% were not sure. So,
BJ, I have to say it's more than I expected, but maybe I should have known once you mentioned all those Google searches.
yeah, really. And so am I loud enough?
Yes.
Okay. Good, great. So, okay, so let's come back to the advantages of virtual tours. Well, a big one is, of course, they're always free. And there are, of course, online programs at a lot of the museums that you can pay for, but the virtual tours are free. You can visit them from the comfort of your home. Often you can visit an exhibit long after that exhibit has left the physical museum. You can get closer to the exhibit. You can see details. You can get closer to works of art. For example, I remember going to the Louvre and not being allowed to stand very close to the Mona Lisa because there were so many people there, but on my computer, I can zoom right up to it. You can see brush strokes and paintings. Sometimes the museums have behind the scenes tours. And then a lot of them have really taken up the challenge of creative storytelling so that you really understand what the driving story is behind that exhibit, what they're trying to tell. So, so let me give you a sampling of what that virtual experience is like. It's interactive. You can often look around in 360 degrees. Some of them have voiceover descriptions. A lot of them you can zoom in on the artwork. Some of them give you a tour where they walk you from one place to the next through the space, and some of them you get to drive that yourself. Some of them have animations, and some of them even have support for virtual reality if you have one of those helmets. And I'm going to quickly try and clear my throat. So, okay, so here's what we mean by an interactive. Oops, I meant to open up I had that open in a different tab, so we're going to come right back here. So here's the Guggenheim Bilbao in Spain. Gorgeous building, right? And on their site, they have some stories that they tell about the collection. So you can pick whichever of these online exhibits you want to look at, or you can look for specific things in that collection, photos, information about the town and Spain, contemporary art. So you have a lot of choices there. And then you can kind of step through the full collection of photos here. But let's just take a quick look at one of these stories. So for example, here's The Land of Two Rivers by Anselm Kiefer. And so this is the work itself, but also there's text here explaining what this painting is and what you see when you look at it from a distance. And then it zooms in and lets you look at it closer and explains the materials being used. So that's an example of what we mean by a 300, an interactive experience. Let me get back to my slide here because I did not mean to jump back there. Okay. And then some of the sites have 360-degree videos. So we're going to take a quick look at the Vatican Museum. Some of these, if your computer is old and you don't have good graphics, they'll take a while to load things because they're very high resolution. So here, let's take a quick virtual tour of the Sistine Chapel. And so in this case, you'll see this overlaid faint arrow here where you can follow the arrows and it will load and it will kind of move you into the space. So here it moves you closer to that entry point. And as I said, it can take a while to load. And also, it's highly interactive, so I can look around. I can turn all the way around to see what's around me. I can use the arrows here, or I can just drag it around. There's where I came from. And I can look up because a lot of the work here is up, right? So I can move closer and I can look all the way up. I can imagine that I'm flat on my back, the way Michelangelo was when he was painting this. And then I can zoom in and get a closer look at what's up there. So it's amazing. And of course, there's so much to look at just in that one chapel. You could spend a long time there. So that's an example of 360 video. And then let's look at one more here. So here, back to the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. And here they have a map. So it shows, oh, you're here. Here's the elephant. And you can use the map to move your view around, rotate it around the rotunda, or you can follow the arrows into different spaces. Or you can just click on another collection. And so, for example, I could just click here and move into the Mammal Hall or North America. And I can close this map, get it out of the way, and then I can just take a look here. I can zoom in to look at the animals. I can zoom back out. And I could look around to see what else is here that I might want to take a look at. So So you can wander through the whole museum this way. So that's another one that we'll have links to all of these tours in a handout we're going to give you at the end. And so, I'm realizing that I missed a little something in my previous slide that I wanted to show you. So I'm going to go do that right now. Copy home. So here's a really good example of getting to look at the detail of something. So here, Google Arts and Culture is one of the platforms that museums use to share their collections online. And here we can zoom in on this painting, and here's the painting. We can zoom in, we can pick the level of zoom we want, we can look at every brush stroke. Isn't that amazing? We can move around the painting, and it's just fascinating to see every little brush stroke there. So that's one of the things you can do online too. So that's one of the advantages of virtual tours. You would not be allowed to walk right up to that painting and stick your face up that close in the museum. So now, as I said, and we'll have a link to that Van Gogh painting also in the handout. So let's talk about how you can visit virtually. You can do this on your computer, your smartphone, or your tablet, like your iPad. You can do it on your Chromebook, Windows, Mac, all of those. Naturally, the bigger the screen you have, the better you'll be able to see the detail, but you can do it on your phone. So as long as you're connected to the internet, you can go to the website of any museum offering virtual tours, or you could start with a platform that allows you to visit museums online. Now, some virtual tours might invite you or require you to download specific software onto your device. And for example, Google Arts and Culture has an app you can download to look at their art, but you don't actually need to download that app. You actually can look in your web browser. So, so all the examples I'm showing you today do not require you to download an app. You can just do them by being connected to the internet. And all of the links that are in the handout we're going to give you later also will not require you to install an app. So let's look at some of those tools. I gave you a brief glimpse of Google Arts and Culture. So let's take a closer look there. And I just want to answer a question that I see, just so it doesn't confuse people while I'm talking. Different museums use different platforms and different methods to display their collections online. And so they may have their own way that they use terminology. So for example, one may say gallery and another may say installation and another may say exhibit. So don't let the terminology confuse you. Here's Google Arts and Culture. They have some interactive things you can do here. They let you explore the site with different experiments, 360-degree videos, the camera, and many museums, many of the great museums are connected to this one. So you can explore specific locations and works about them. They always have some today's top picks. Here, if you wanted to install the app, you can download it here. They even have some games and So here today's topic was post-impressionism, but you can visit the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, the Louvre in Paris, the National Gallery of the British Museum in London. You can even visit the Palace of Versailles or the Impressionist Museum, the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, the Uffizi Gallery in Florence. So there's no limit. And look, there's some fun things to do, like even find your pet. But here, so I've scrolled, I didn't have to scroll down too far, but here's a list of some museums that we could exhibit. But there are many more. So, and both the Van Gogh painting I showed before and the Guggenheim Bilbao were accessed through Google Arts and Culture. They have excellent image quality. And as I said, you can download it as an app. So, so definitely worth taking a look. The URL for that is artsandculture.google.com, and it will be in the list of links that we give you later. So let's go back and look at another tool for virtual tours. Now, some of these tools aren't specific to museums, but they're available for making virtual tours to other locations. And since many of us canceled our travel plans because of the pandemic, it's kind of nice that you could still go and visit different places, different destinations online. And then some of these do include museums. So for example, Tourist Tube has a 3-dimensional interface that lets you look around. So what we could do is we could look around here at the outside of a museum. Wait, that's not the link I wanted. Let me copy that link over here. Oh, for example, I can take a virtual tour around the outside of a museum. I can see what it looks like from the front, where they hang the banners of the exhibits, what's across the street, what's in the garden. So that's one way to look at it. And you can move between different views of it. So here it would be like you're coming from across the street, and here's the entrance. No lines today on some of the sculptures outside. And then another tool that is geared towards virtual tours and not explicitly towards museums is Curated, and let's explore it without the E. So let's go to the Eiffel Tower. This one's a lot of fun. So here we are, we're up on the viewing platform of the Eiffel Tower. We could look around Paris. We can go to a different view. Here's the folks on the deck. There's even a tour you can take where you walk around the deck. Oh, here we go. Where did that go? So you see it's video, people up there, they're looking, they're talking. And they even have one where you could walk around the whole outside of that deck. So that's Explore It. And of course, they have other sites you can see in Paris. And then a lot of people don't know this about Google Maps, but Google Maps allow people to upload photographs associated with specific locations. And so it's a fun place to see what visitors to a museum have posted. So let me We'll take a closer look at that. Oh, I missed a letter. Okay, now I'm frustrated. Let's paste this in. There we go. Okay, so so here's the Google map showing me the location of the National Museum of African American History and Culture on the Mall in Washington, D.C. I can look around and see, oh, what other museums are there? But if I click on this photo in the upper left, then I can look and see what other photos have people uploaded. So, here's a photo of the exterior. I can scroll through these. Also, I can take a street view. So you can put yourself in among the pictures and no, that didn't do much, did it? So, but here you're inside the museum. You can scroll down these pictures and pick which ones you want to look at. You could look out the window. So, and all of these were photos people uploaded. And so if you look up here, you'll see who uploaded this photo. So this one was uploaded by Eric Broom, and this one was uploaded by Terry Pearson. So, so this is not the official tour, but other visitors who've been there give you their version of the tour. And so, so that's a fun way to view those. Okay, that's good. So, so these are a few museum tours you might want to take, or you probably have your own ideas about what you'd like to see online for a virtual museum tour. And these are some very popular ones: the Museum of Modern Art in New York. And we'll have links to all of these in our handout at the end. The American Museum of Natural History, the Louvre in Paris, and the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which we're going to take a look at too. MoMA has virtual views of its special exhibitions, and you can watch videos and pictures and listen to audio files. So their website features virtual visits to the special exhibitions, and they tell a story, and they've curated the content specifically for online viewing. And you can also visit it through Google Arts and Culture. But here they have their own tours on their museum. And that would be at moma.org. And then for the American Museum of Natural History in New York is amnh.org. That one has a lot of online offerings, including materials for families and teachers. So if you wanted to take a tour with your grandchildren, you can go to their website or view it through Google Arts and Culture. And so they have virtual field trips, virtual tours. You can watch videos and play games. At the Louvre, there are free online virtual tours for 3 of its galleries, including the Egyptian antiquities. And that would be louvre.fr. And for African American history and culture, that one's at nmaahc.si.edu because it's part of the Smithsonian Institution and Educational. And again, you don't have to remember that. It'll be in the handout. So you're able to explore both permanent exhibits, special exhibits, past exhibitions, and then they have some special digital-only features. For example, stories from Shea Baldwin, the late James Baldwin's historic home in France. You can watch videos and more. And so I'm going to conclude today's presentation with a tour of this museum, and we've got a few sample exhibitions we can view. So I'm going to let's move this right over here. So here is the Shea Baldwin exhibit. You can scroll down through it, and just as if you were in the museum, you have informational text. There's some quotes from him, some stories, and so there are stories you can read. There are, and you can also scroll through the stories to see what other stories are there. Like this one, he went back and forth between the United States and France, so he had his passport. Here he is in a protest march with Joe Baez. So lots of interesting things to do there. And you can explore objects from his life there. It's a dress book. And more. So they have a lot there. And there are some online resources for education. And you can watch some public programs. This is a past program, but you can watch the video to learn more about James Baldwin. Now let's go to another one at the museum is this one called Make Good the Promises, about the history of Reconstruction after the Civil War and its legacies. And it's a very powerful exhibit. The video here gives you kind of an introduction to it. And then there are a lot of photos. And there's a fabulous online exhibit guide. So you can click download. You can download a PDF exhibit guide. That's the kind of thing you would have paid to get in print if you were at the museum. And it has a lot of information. And then you can pick different storylines for looking at the museum. And so this one in particular is a very powerful exhibit. Another thing you can do, and this is interesting because it has a different URL. Instead of being under the museum site, this one is, the searchable museum.com. They have another site where you can explore some of the collection online. And so there's a slave cabin, the Emancipation Proclamation, and Harriet Tubman's shawl. So you can, they don't have everything on here, but they have some specific exhibits that you can look at. And they also have a digital resource guide that lets you know what else is there that you can look at. So there's some educational materials, activity books for kids. There's a portal for having discussions about race. And then you can also access the exhibitions from here. And there's a video archive. So a lot of their curator chats are up on YouTube, and other things that were streamed events. And because it is Black History Month, the museum has an entry point for Black History Month this year with a focus through the lens of Black health and wellness. And so You can learn about the history and importance of Black History Month. There's a section about midwives, doulas, and birth workers. And the video lets you hear some of their voices talking about their work. Then there's more about the history and the significance of these doulas and midwives. And then there's a section on health and wellness pioneers. So you look at pioneers in medicine, and there's a timeline here, so you can scroll through it, or you can just scroll through the pictures here, and it will take you through the timeline. So the first African American to get a medical degree in the U.S., and the first cardiologist. So lots of history there. And in the Searchable Museum, there is a section on Henrietta Lacks. If you haven't heard of her or the book, Henrietta Lacks, Immortal Souls, after she died, doctors continued to use cells from her body for research, and they had a huge impact on the development of medicine, including the development of the polio vaccine and in vitro fertilization and cloning. These cells are still being used today, or the descendants of those cells. So you can visit that exhibit. So a lot of different topics there, and also videos of talks. So I think I'm actually running ahead of time, which is great. So what I'd like to do is pause for a little discussion here, which is, if you're joining us from Facebook, you can let us know in the comments, like, what museum would you like to visit virtually? And the rest of you, of course, can think about this as well. It might be one I talked about today, or it might be something completely different. And while you are typing those in, I'm going to take a quick look at the chat to see if there's any quick questions I can answer.
While you're looking, BJ, I
Yes.
want to thank you for this presentation. It was very interesting. You know, as you're giving it and showing all these museums, I love visiting museums, by the way, but I've never done it virtually, so I'm excited about that. And I have visions of hooking up my laptop to our big screen TV, you know, some refreshments maybe, and making a fun time of it. So,
great.
Yeah,
that's great, Mary. Mary has put some of the links in the chat, but again, they'll be in the handout, and you'll be able to download it. So,
again, I welcome everyone to put questions in the comment section if you have any questions or comments.
Yeah.
I know there was some asked, and we did answer in print. But again, if you're interested in watching this presentation on demand, or would like to have someone else see it, you can find it by going to www.aarp.org/MI and clicking on the AARP Michigan Virtual Events link. I know this is a lot of information, and it seems some of these museums are, it almost seems overwhelming. I'm assuming if we go into some of them, you know, hit on the link, it'll start to be intuitive, BJ, as far as how to traverse around them.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, as you saw, I showed you 4 different platforms for virtual tours, and each of them has its own user interface. They have things in common. For example, if you have this 360 view, you are generally able to look, you know, rotate around, look to the right and the left, do a full spin around. You're able to look up and down, and you're able to zoom in and get a closer look. But each museum may have its own interface for that. And so in the beginning, it can be a little confusing because one tour will not necessarily use the same controls as another, but spend a little time with one and then spend a little time with another, and you'll get much more comfortable with it.
Okay.
And I do think the Google Arts and Culture is a nice place to start, just in terms of zooming in and out from the works. But then the 360 views, just pick one and explore it, because they're a lot of fun to go through the museums.
It does look like that. We do have a few questions, BJ.
Okay.
I have a question from Phil on how do I access the handout?
Oh, okay. So, so we've got we will be putting the URL for it in the comments in the chat, and you will be able to download it. And do we have a short URL that the people who aren't on Facebook will be able to access, Mary?
I believe you can go to aarp.org/mi and get some more information.
Okay. So
under the virtual events
link.
there
it is. And so in the chat it's at aarpmi.org, as Mary said, /virtual museum tour handout.
Right.
So, so you all should be able to access that. And
BJ, we also have a question from Shannon, or kind of a comment question. Shannon wondered how these virtual projects were funded. Do you happen to know that? That's an interesting question.
Well, a lot of the museums got specific grants to fund their online exhibits, or they did their own fundraising campaigns, you know, with their members and their donors to fund that work. And they've been working on virtual tours for a number of years now, some more than others. So they're not all funded from the same place.
Okay. So it's not just pandemic driven. They're not just pandemic driven. Okay.
That's correct. It's not all pandemic driven. And of course, the National Museum of African American History and Culture is part of the Smithsonian. And so the Smithsonian museums are part of the US government, and they are funded by our tax dollars, but also they take donations and receive grants to fund some of their exhibits. So it's possible that that some of these exhibits had specific funders.
Interesting. Yeah.
What other questions do we have, Mary?
Well, we have some, and I will review the where this recording can be seen again. Again, you can watch this presentation by going to www.aarp.org/mi and clicking on the AARP Michigan Virtual Events link, and you'll be able to watch us again. We also have other virtual event page out there from recently past presentations, so you can check that out as well. I'm interested, BJ, in knowing if you have, maybe this is a hard question, but do you have any of your favorites or anything you suggest we start with?
I think it's fairly easy to start with the Google Arts and Culture, and just pick something of interest there to look at. But another thing is, if you have a specific museum you're interested in, like the Museum of African American History and Culture, that you just go to the museum's website, and they will usually have, you know, sometimes under Explore or exhibits, they'll have a way for you to access their online exhibits. So you can do it directly from the museum site. If there's something particular you have in mind, and often if there's a particular exhibit you have in mind. So, you know, you could always do a Google search for the James Baldwin exhibit in the Smithsonian, and that should get you to the Shea Baldwin exhibit. So
Well, that's good to know. I
Yeah.
can certainly know how to Google search, so I can find a website of a museum I'm interested in, and oftentimes the link is there, or they have a button there. That's good to know. I might fall back if I forget the other links.
Yeah. I do see a great question here about whether any of the virtual tours are given by actual docents. And, that's a really good question. And I don't know, Michelle, because of course I haven't done all of them. It's possible. Usually the virtual tours are put together by the curators. Um, and so some of them may actually be narrated by the curators rather than by docents. Um, but it's possible there are docent-led tours as well. And sometimes you might see a museum advertising a real-time tour where you can sign up to go through it together with a docent or a curator leading it. And those would be listed on their site, maybe under online tours, but also under events.
Mhm. Okay, we have a question from Susan. Will another seminar be scheduled on this?
On this topic,
I'm assuming virtual
museum tours. Virtual museum tours is in our regular rotation at Senior Planet. And so if you, and we'll give you more information on this shortly, but if you look at our website, you can sign up for a newsletter of all our online sessions. And that's one way to find out when it's being taught again. And another is to visit our website. So, but yeah, I don't think we do it at regular intervals. I can't predict when the next one is, but we definitely do regularly do virtual museum tours. And I'll let Bree pipe in if she knows when the next one is. But, and let's see what else we have here.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Please put them in the comment section before we wrap it up. And perhaps while we're waiting for any other comments, BJ, do you have any final thoughts or anything for the audience?
Well, mostly give it a try. And yes, so give the Senior Planet resources a try. And if you're interested, Senior Planet from AARP is a national program for people 60 and older generally, and offering thousands of free classes online and across the country to help you build technology skills to improve your health, save money, make new friends, and thrive in today's digital world. And so if you're interested in learning more and participating in our classes or our discussion groups that are hosted on Zoom, you can visit seniorplanet.org for upcoming classes and events. Also, if you get stuck with technology and you have a question, you can call our free Senior Planet hotline. It's toll free. Right now, it's only open during Eastern time business hours, although we hope someday to expand that. And you can sign up for our newsletters. If you live near a Senior Planet Center, you can sign up for that center's events, but also you can sign up to find out what's happening online. We have a lot of fitness classes, and we have 2 more events scheduled with AARP Michigan coming up on March 8th. We'll do one on mindfulness apps. And on the 11th, we'll do one as an introduction to social media. So all of those you can learn more about at seniorplanet.org. And I think that's all I have, except to thank AARP Michigan for inviting us and hosting us, and to thank all of you for coming and for your kind attention and your questions and comments.
Yes, I want to thank everyone for participating as well. And if I haven't said it enough, I'm going to say it just one more time. If you're watching this, it is being recorded, has been recorded, and you can review it and find it at www.aarp.org/mi under Michigan Virtual Events link. And then finally, on the AARP Michigan Virtual Events page, you will find recent past presentations that you can watch on demand, as well as upcoming presentations that you can register for. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. Hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.